Jiwan Park stood in the center of the massive council chamber and felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes watching her every move. The golden dome above stretched higher than most buildings on Earth, and the walls shimmered with a strange blue, light that hurt human eyes after too long. She had been standing there for 3 hours now while the various alien species argued about humanity's fate, like she was not even in the room. The crystalline being called Vexthala moved forward on legs that looked like broken glass. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "The matter is quite simple," Vexthala said to the other council members. "The human species has once again shown they cannot control their violent impulses. The incident at Kepler Station proves they are not ready for civilized society." Jiwan felt her hands clench into fists but kept her face calm. The Kepler Station incident had happened 2 months ago, when human Marines rescued 4,000 alien civilians from a pirate attack. The pirates had been torturing prisoners and planning to sell them as slaves. The human response had been swift and deadly. Not one pirate survived and every hostage went home safely to their families. But the Galactic Council called it excessive force. Behind Vexthala, the other council members nodded their various heads and made sounds of agreement. The Hive Lord representative clicked its mandibles in what humans had learned meant disapproval. Its compound eyes never blinked as it stared at Jiwan with obvious disgust. The deep-sworn ambassador floated in its tank of purple liquid and made bubbling sounds that the translator turned into words about human barbarism. Taemin Lee sat in the human observers section and watched his ambassador fight for their species, alone. He wore his military uniform with pride even though the aliens always made comments about humans and their warlike appearance. His dark eyes took in every detail of the chamber and every face of the aliens who held humanity's future in their hands. As the military liaison, he had seen this coming for months. The other species had been looking for an excuse to put humans in their place. "Ambassador Park," Vexthala continued, "your species has been part of this council for only 50 years. In that time, you have started more conflicts than any other member species. You ignore our protocols for peaceful resolution. You respond to every crisis with violence first and questions later." Jiwan finally spoke and her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. "We respond to crises with action while others debate. When the Korath colony was dying from plague, we sent medical ships immediately. When the Nexus trade routes were being attacked by raiders, we cleared them in 3 weeks. When the—" "Enough," the Luminary representative interrupted. The being of pure energy pulsed with angry red light. "You list these incidents as if they were achievements. Each time you acted without proper authorization. Each time you ignored established procedures. Each time you showed the same disregard for galactic law that marks your species as fundamentally unsuited for civilized governance." The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement from the alien delegates. Clicking, bubbling, chiming, and electromagnetic. Pulses that the translators could barely keep up with. Jiwan stood in the center of it all and felt something cold settle in her chest. She had spent 15 years of her life trying to build bridges between humanity and the other species. She had learned their languages, studied their cultures, and always looked for compromise even when her own people called her too soft. Today she finally understood what her critics back on Earth had been trying to tell her. The other species did not want partnership with humanity. They wanted dominance over humanity. "The vote is called," Vexthala announced. "All in favor of removing voting rights from the human species pending a probationary period of not less than 100 years. One by one, the alien representatives signaled their agreement. The Hive Lords clicked approval. The Deep-Sworn bubbled yes. The Luminari pulsed agreement. Even the smaller species that humanity had helped in the past voted against them. Only the HFY Ketra delegate abstained, and that was probably because humans had saved their homeworld from an asteroid strike just 5 years ago. "The motion passes," Vexthala declared. "Effective immediately, the human species is stripped of all voting privileges in council matters. Human representatives may observe council sessions but may not participate in debates or influence decisions. This probationary status will be reviewed in 100 years provided the human species demonstrates significant progress in adopting civilized standards of behavior." The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of the air recyclers seemed to stop. Every alien eye focused on Jiwon Park, waiting for her reaction. They expected anger or pleading or some display of the human emotions they found so distasteful. Instead, Jiwon smiled. "Thank you," she said clearly. "You have made this decision much easier than I expected." She reached into her diplomatic pouch and pulled out a small device that projected a holographic document into the air above her head. The symbols and text were in standard galactic script that every species could read. "By the authority granted to me by the Terran Federation and the United Earth Assembly, I hereby invoke Article 12 of the Galactic Membership Charter," Jiwon announced. "Effective immediately, the human species withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and cooperative arrangements with the Galactic Council and its member species." The silence stretched longer. Vexathala's crystalline form seemed to dim. "Ambassador Park, surely you do not mean—" "I mean exactly what I said," Jiwon interrupted. "Within 30 days, all human personnel will be withdrawn from Council space. All human-built infrastructure will be deactivated or removed. All trade agreements are void. All defense pacts are cancelled. All scientific exchanges are terminated." She touched another control on her device and new text appeared in the hologram. "Furthermore, any alien vessels in human space have 30 days to depart. Any alien colonies on human-claimed worlds have 90 days to relocate. The Sol system and all human settlements are now off-limits to non-human species." The Hive Lord representative stood so quickly its chair crashed to the floor. "You cannot be serious. Your species depends on Council resources for survival. Your technology is primitive. Your population is small. Without our protection, you will be destroyed by the first hostile force that finds you." Jiwon's smile grew wider. "Perhaps, but that will be our choice to make." She turned toward Taemin Lee and gave him a small nod. The military officer stood and walked down to join her on the chamber floor. Together they faced the assembled alien council that had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. "You forget," Taemin said in his calm military voice, "that for the past 50 years humanity has been responsible for patrolling the most dangerous sectors of Council space. We have been assigned every suicide mission and impossible task you could think of. We have fought your battles, protected your colonies, and died for your causes, and we did it all while you treated us like violent children who needed constant supervision." The deep-sworn ambassador made urgent bubbling sounds. "The Outer Rim territories, who will protect them now? The Void Border Patrols, who will maintain them?" "Not our problem anymore," Jiwon replied. "You wanted us gone from your civilized society. Congratulations. You have your wish." She and Taemin turned and walked toward the chamber exit. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Behind them, alien voices began rising in panic as the reality of the situation became clear. 50 years of human military protection was about to disappear. Hundreds of human-built installations would go offline. Thousands of human workers and soldiers would abandon their posts. At the chamber doors, Jiwon paused and looked back at the chaos she was leaving behind. Vexthala was frantically trying to restore order while other delegates argued and shouted in their various languages. Ambassador Park, the crystalline, being called out. "Perhaps we can discuss this further. Surely some arrangement can be reached." Jiwon considered this for a moment, then shook her head. "You had 50 years to treat us as equals. Instead, you chose to treat us as dangerous pets that were useful for the jobs you were too civilized to do yourselves. Now you can see how civilized you really are when the dangerous pets go home." She walked out of the chamber and did not look back. Taemin followed her, and the massive doors sealed shut behind them with a sound like thunder. In the corridor outside, human security officers waited with their gear already packed. They had been listening to the proceedings and knew exactly what was coming next. "Send the message," Jiwon told her communications officer. "All human assets are to begin immediate withdrawal from Council space. Operation Exodus is now active." The officer saluted and began transmitting orders that would reach every human ship, station, and colony within hours. Across the galaxy, human personnel would receive the same simple message: "Come home." As they walked through the Council complex toward their transport ship, Taemin spoke quietly to his ambassador. "They will try to stop us, some of them anyway, Jiwon. nodded. Let them try. They just voted that we are too violent and uncivilized for their society. I think it is time we showed them exactly how uncivilized we can be. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in shouting as the aliens finally understood what they had just done to themselves. Captain Minho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the last human transport vessels disappear into hyperspace. 6 months had passed since Ambassador Park delivered humanity's ultimatum to the Galactic Council, and the withdrawal was almost complete. His heavy cruiser Incheon was one of the final military vessels still operating in what used to be Council space. The viewscreen showed the orbital station around Zerion 4, where human engineers had worked for 20 years maintaining the planet's defense grid. Now the station was dark and empty. The aliens below had begged the humans to stay but offered nothing, except more promises of eventual respect that never seemed to arrive. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the planetary government. They are offering to double the maintenance contracts if we delay our departure." Minho did not even turn from the viewscreen. "Tell them to direct all future communications to the Galactic Council. We no longer have any authority to negotiate on behalf of humanity." The communications officer sent the message and received an immediate angry response. The aliens were learning that humans meant what they said when they spoke of complete withdrawal. No exceptions would be made. No special deals would be offered. The bridge of trust had been burned, and humans were not interested in building a new one. 2 sectors away, engineer So Young-han supervised the deactivation of the atmospheric processors on Korath 7. The massive machines had been built by human corporations 30 years ago when the planet's original terraforming systems failed. Without constant maintenance, the processors would shut down within a year, and the planet would become uninhabitable. "Are you certain you want to do this?" asked Korthak Prime Minister Veltar through the translation device. The alien's forearms gestured frantically at the towering machinery. 15 million citizens depend on these systems for survival. So-young checked her tablet and confirmed that all human-built components had been properly shut down. "Then I suggest you contact the Galactic Council for replacement technicians. Our contract was terminated when the Council decided humans were too primitive to participate in galactic civilization." She walked toward the transport shuttle that would take her to the evacuation ship waiting in orbit. Behind her, the alien officials continued pleading, but she had heard the same arguments on a dozen worlds over the past 6 months. The aliens wanted human expertise and human protection, but they also wanted to treat humans as second-class citizens. They could not have both. The shuttle lifted off from the landing pad, and So-young looked down at the sprawling cities below. In 12 months, those cities would be empty ruins when the atmosphere became toxic. The aliens had the technical specifications for the processors, but they lacked the experience to build or maintain them. Human engineers had tried for decades to train alien technicians, but the other species always found excuses to avoid learning what they considered menial work. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Hyun-woo Choi coordinated the largest military withdrawal in galactic history. Hundreds of human warships were abandoning their patrol routes and defensive positions throughout Council space. The aliens had assigned these dangerous duties to humans for decades while keeping their own fleets safe in the core systems. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting increased pirate activity in the Vega sector. 3 cargo convoys have been attacked in the past week." Hyun-woo studied the tactical display showing ship movements across dozens of star systems. Red markers indicated pirate raids while blue markers showed the retreating human fleet. As human patrols disappeared, the pirates were moving into the newly undefended territory like scavengers following a retreating army. "Not our problem anymore," he said firmly. "Continue the withdrawal according to schedule." His bridge crew acknowledged the orders, but Hyun-woo could see the concern in their faces. These men and women had spent their careers protecting alien colonies and trade routes. It felt wrong to abandon their posts even after the aliens had made it clear that human protection was unwanted. The flagship's communication array lit up with incoming messages from desperate alien commanders begging for continued human military support. Hyun-woo deleted each message without reading it. The Galactic Council had made their decision, and now they would live with the consequences. On Earth, President Yoonji Nam addressed a joint session of the Terran Assembly in a speech that would be remembered for centuries. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every human world and colony, while billions more watched on screens throughout human space. "My fellow humans," she began, "6 months ago, the Galactic Council declared that we were unfit to participate in civilized society. They stripped us of our voting rights and treated us like dangerous children who needed constant supervision. Today, I stand before you to say that their rejection of humanity was the greatest gift they could have given us." The hall erupted in cheers from the assembled representatives. President Nam waited for silence before continuing. "For 50 years we have fought their battles and protected their colonies while they dismissed our contributions as the crude efforts of a primitive species. We have followed their rules and respected their protocols while they denied us equality at every turn. We have been patient and diplomatic while they treated us with contempt." She paused and looked around the Great Hall, at the faces of humanity's elected leaders. "No more. From this day forward, humanity stands alone, but humanity stands strong. We will not be isolationists hiding from the galaxy. We will be an independent civilization that makes its own choices and follows its own path. We will trade with those who offer fair terms and defend ourselves against those who threaten us. We will explore new worlds and push the boundaries of science and technology, without asking permission from species who consider themselves our betters." The applause lasted for several minutes as the human representatives showed their approval for the new direction. President Nam raised her hand for silence. "Let the aliens manage their own affairs without us. Let them patrol their own borders and solve their own problems. Let them see how civilized they really are when the humans they despised are no longer there to do the jobs they considered beneath them." The speech was broadcast throughout human space and reached every colony, station, and ship. Human citizens who had felt ashamed of their species' reputation for violence now felt pride in their independence. Human soldiers who had been criticized for their aggressive tactics now understood that their strength was not a weakness to be hidden, but a gift to be treasured. In the Outer Rim territories where humans had patrolled for decades, the first signs of collapse were already becoming visible. Pirate fleets that had been scattered and demoralized by constant human attacks began organizing into larger groups. Trade routes that had been secure for years became dangerous passages that merchant ships avoided. The Nexus Commercial Authority sent desperate messages to the retreating human fleet, offering massive payment for continued protection services. The messages were forwarded to Earth, where bureaucrats politely replied that all military contracts had been terminated, and no new agreements would be considered. On the industrial world of Vorthak, alien technicians struggled to maintain equipment that humans had installed and serviced for 20 years. The machines were built to human specifications using human tools and human maintenance procedures. Without human engineers to guide them, the alien workers made critical errors that led to system failures throughout the planet's manufacturing sector. Factory supervisors who had treated human technicians as menial laborers now realized too late that those same technicians possessed knowledge and experience that could not be easily replaced. Emergency messages flooded the communication networks as one industrial facility after another went offline. The Galactic Council held emergency session after emergency session trying to address the growing crisis. Speaker Vexathala struggled to maintain order as representatives from dozens of species demanded immediate action. "The human withdrawal must be stopped," declared the Hive Lord Ambassador. 3 of our outer colonies have already been attacked by pirates. Our defensive fleets cannot cover the territory that human patrols once protected. The deep-sworn representative bubbled agreement from its tank. Our trade routes through the nebula regions are now completely unusable. Human void runners were the only ships capable of navigating those passages safely. But the Council had no solution to offer. The charter that governed galactic civilization clearly stated that any species could withdraw from membership at any time. Humanity had followed all proper procedures and could not be forced to remain. "Perhaps," suggested the luminary delegate, "we could offer to restore their voting rights in exchange for a partial return of their military forces." Vexthala's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. "After what we said about their unfitness for civilized society? They would never accept such an obvious attempt to use them. The debate continued for hours without reaching any conclusion. The aliens who had spent decades treating humans as violent primitives now found themselves helpless, without human protection and expertise. Meanwhile, the human withdrawal continued with military precision. Every human citizen, soldier, and worker was evacuated from Council space within the promised Third Trade Coordinator Jaehyun Song studied the economic reports flowing into his office on New Busan Colony and felt a grim satisfaction at what he was seeing. 1 year had passed since humanity severed all relations with the Galactic Council, and the alien economy was collapsing faster than even the most pessimistic human analysts had predicted. The latest data showed that interstellar commerce had dropped by 70% across Council space. Cargo ships sat idle in orbital stations because no one was willing to transport the dangerous materials that kept galactic civilization running. Antimatter fuel, quantum resonance crystals, exotic matter cores, and radioactive ores all required specialized handling that only human freight companies had been willing to provide. "Sir," his assistant reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the Centauri Trade Consortium. They are offering triple rates for antimatter transport to the Kepler sector." Jae-hyun did not even look up from his reports. Standard response: all alien contracts are void and no new agreements will be considered. Refer them to the Galactic Council for alternative solutions. The assistant sent the message, and within minutes received an angry reply demanding to speak with human authorities. The alien merchants could not understand why humans would refuse such profitable contracts. They had never grasped that some things were more important than money. The economic collapse was only part of the story. Security Chief Daeho Park sat in his office on the human monitoring station at Wolf 359 and reviewed intelligence reports that painted an even darker picture. Piracy had exploded across the outer territories as criminal fleets realized that human retaliation was no longer a threat. The Corvin Syndicate had emerged from hiding and was now openly attacking merchant convoys with fleets of heavily armed raiders. The Bloodstars were recruiting mercenaries from a dozen species and launching coordinated strikes against wealthy colonies. Even small-time pirates who had once feared human patrol ships were now bold enough to attack military transports carrying Council peacekeeping forces. The latest count shows over 400 pirate attacks in the past month, his intelligence officer reported. The Council security forces have responded to less than 10% of them. Daeho pulled up a tactical display showing the current location of alien military units. The Council fleets were concentrated around the core worlds, leaving the outer territories completely undefended. Their doctrine of measured response and proportional force had crumbled when faced with enemies who did not follow civilized rules of engagement. "What about the Hive Lord colonies that requested emergency assistance?" Daeho asked. 3 worlds have been completely evacuated after pirate fleets destroyed their orbital defenses. The Hive Lord sent a diplomatic protest to the pirates demanding they follow the Geneva Conventions for space warfare. Daeho almost laughed at the absurdity. The aliens still believed that their civilized protocols would protect them from beings who had never agreed to follow those protocols. Human military doctrine had always been based on the assumption that enemies would use every advantage available to them. Alien military doctrine was based on the fantasy that everyone would fight like gentlemen. On the industrial world of Vorthak, maintenance supervisor Ji-Yun watched alien technicians struggle with equipment that humans had maintained for decades. The massive fusion reactors that powered the planet's manufacturing sector were failing one by one, as inexperienced alien workers made critical errors. "Please," begged Chief Engineer Mortak through the translation device. "Surely you can provide some guidance for our repair teams. We will pay any reasonable fee for consultation services." Ji-Yoon shook her head and pointed to the human evacuation ship waiting in orbit above them. "I told you 12 months ago that your technicians needed training on these systems. Your response was that maintenance work was beneath the dignity of your species. Now you want our help after spending decades treating our engineers like servants." The alien engineer's forearms waved in distress as another reactor warning alarm sounded in the background. "Our people are dying without power for the medical centers. Surely human compassion was what kept these reactors running. For 20 years while you paid us minimum wages and housed our workers in substandard facilities." Ji-Yoon interrupted. You never wanted our compassion. You wanted our labor. Now you can see the difference." She walked toward the shuttle that would take her to the evacuation ship. Behind her, the industrial complex that had once been the economic heart of the Vorthak system was shutting down section by section as critical systems failed. The aliens had the technical manuals for the equipment, but they lacked the experience and practical knowledge that came from years of hands-on work. More disturbing news was coming from the deep space monitoring stations along the void border. Long-range sensor arrays that humans had maintained for decades were going offline one by one, as alien technicians proved unable to keep the delicate equipment functioning. The galaxy was becoming blind to threats from beyond its borders. Communications specialist Myong Park monitored the emergency channels from his station on Titan and listened to increasingly desperate alien calls for assistance. The sensor station at grid reference 447 had detected massive energy signatures moving through the void between galaxies before going dark. The backup station at grid reference 451 had confirmed similar readings before its power systems failed. "Sir," he reported to his commanding officer, "the aliens are requesting immediate technical support for the deep space arrays. They claim to be detecting signs of extragalactic activity." Commander Johann Seo reviewed the transmission data and felt a chill run down his spine. 50 years ago, humanity had faced an invasion from beyond the galaxy, when machine entities had swept through the outer systems, consuming everything in their path. Human fleets had stopped that invasion, but only after suffering massive casualties, in desperate battles that the aliens had preferred to forget. "Send the standard reply," CEO ordered. "All technical contracts have been terminated. Refer them to the Galactic Council for alternative solutions." But privately, he began composing a report for Earth Command about the possible return of the extragalactic threat. The aliens might deserve their fate, but humanity needed to be prepared for what was coming. On Earth, the human government was not idle during the galactic crisis. Research Director Kyung-Min Jo oversaw the most ambitious technology development program in human history. Freed from alien regulations and ethical oversight, human scientists were making breakthrough discoveries at an unprecedented rate. "The new quantum-fold drive system is ready for testing," her lead physicist reported. "Initial calculations suggest we can achieve speeds that are 10 times faster than current alien technology." Kyung-min reviewed the test data with excitement. Human innovation had always been constrained by alien safety regulations that were designed to prevent any species from gaining significant technological advantages. Now that humanity was independent, those constraints had disappeared. "Begin full-scale testing immediately," she ordered, "and fast-track the Shield Harmonics project. If the extragalactic machines return, we want to be ready for them." The Shield technology was based on human analysis of captured machine fragments from the previous invasion. Alien scientists had dismissed the research as too dangerous, but human researchers had continued the work in secret. Now those forbidden experiments might be the key to galactic survival. Fleet Admiral Boyoung Shin coordinated the largest military buildup in human history from her headquarters on Luna Base. New shipyards were being constructed throughout human space, while existing facilities worked around the clock to produce vessels of revolutionary design. "The first batch of Horizon-class destroyers will be ready for deployment in 6 months," her chief of staff reported. "The new stealth coating makes them virtually invisible to alien sensors." Admiral Shin studied the holographic displays showing ship construction progress across dozens of human worlds. The aliens had always criticized human military spending as excessive and wasteful. They preferred to rely on diplomacy and economic pressure to resolve conflicts. Now they were learning the value of military strength when diplomacy failed. "Double the production schedule," she ordered. "If we are going to stand alone against the galaxy, we need every advantage we can get." The human military had always been designed for independent operation since alien allies had proven unreliable in past crises. Human doctrine emphasized mobility, firepower, and tactical flexibility over the rigid formations favored by alien forces. Human soldiers were trained to fight outnumbered and win through superior skill and determination. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council struggled with crises on multiple fronts. Emergency sessions were called daily, as representative after representative reported new disasters in their territories. The Korath plague had spread to 6 more worlds without human medical ships to deliver vaccines. The Nexus trade war had erupted into open conflict, as species fought over the few remaining safe shipping routes. The Vorthak industrial crisis had caused massive unemployment and social unrest throughout the sector. Speaker Vexthala tried to maintain order as the council chamber echoed with anger. Emergency Session Coordinator In Huan Yu monitored the alien communications from his intelligence station hidden in the asteroid belt and watched the Galactic Council descend into complete chaos. 2 years had passed since humanity severed all relations with the alien civilizations, and what had started as economic problems had become an existential crisis for every species in council space. The latest reports painted a picture of systematic collapse that was accelerating beyond anyone's ability to control. The insectoid hive lords had lost 6 entire hive worlds to coordinated pirate attacks. Their precise military doctrine that relied on calculated responses and predetermined battle formations had proven completely useless against enemies who fought without honor or predictable tactics. "Sir," his communications specialist reported, "we are intercepting another emergency transmission from the Hive Lord Supreme Commander. They are requesting immediate military assistance from any available human forces." In Huan read the message transcript and shook his head at the desperation in the alien words. The Hive Lords were offering complete access to their advanced biotechnology, exclusive trade agreements worth trillions of credits, and even territorial concessions in exchange for human military intervention. 2 years ago, these same beings had voted to strip humanity of all political rights because humans were too primitive for civilized society. "Send the standard response," he ordered. "All military contracts have been terminated and no new agreements will be considered. Refer them to the Galactic Council for alternative solutions." The aquatic Deepsworn were facing even worse problems. Their complex trade networks that connected hundreds of underwater cities had been completely severed when human void runners stopped transporting goods through the dangerous nebula regions. Deepsworn vessels simply could not navigate the chaotic energy fields and gravitational anomalies that human ships passed through routinely. Economic analyst Subin Kang studied the latest trade reports from her office on Europa Station and marveled at how quickly the alien economy had unraveled. The Deepsworn Commercial Authority was offering exclusive contracts worth 10 times the previous rates for anyone willing to resume cargo runs through the nebulas. The responses they received were always the same polite rejection followed by a suggestion to contact the Galactic Council. "Ma'am," her assistant reported. Another transmission from the Deepsworn Economics Minister. "They are now offering to share their advanced aquaculture technology if we resume even limited trade operations." Subin deleted the message without reading. The aliens were finally offering the technology sharing agreements that humans had requested for decades. But the offers came too late, and with too little sincerity. The Deepsworn had always treated human merchants as crude barbarians who were useful for dangerous work, but unworthy of true partnership. The worst crisis was developing along the void border where the deep space monitoring stations continued to fail one by one. Energy readings from beyond the galaxy were becoming stronger and more frequent as something massive approached from the empty darkness between star systems. The aliens had neither the technical expertise to maintain their sensor networks, nor the military strength to respond to whatever was coming. Sensor specialist Jinho Lim monitored the alien emergency frequencies from his post on Ceres base and listened to increasingly frantic calls for assistance. The automated warning systems that humans had installed decades ago were triggering alerts about massive energy signatures moving through the void. But without human technicians to interpret the data, the aliens could not determine the nature or scope of the threat. "Sir," he reported to his commanding officer, "the Luminary Defense Council is broadcasting on all emergency channels requesting immediate technical support for their deep space arrays. They claim to be detecting signs of a major extragalactic incursion." Commander Dongyun reviewed the sensor data that human monitoring stations were still collecting independently. The readings showed energy patterns identical to those detected 50 years ago, before the machine entity invasion. Something was definitely coming, and it would arrive within months rather than years. "Begin preparation of a full report for Earth. Command," he ordered. "The aliens may deserve their fate, but we need to know what we will be facing when those things reach inhabited space." The machine entities had been stopped before, but only through massive human sacrifice and tactical innovations that the aliens had dismissed as reckless barbarism. Human commanders had been willing to ram damaged ships into enemy formations and detonate antimatter warheads at point-blank range. Alien commanders had criticized such tactics as wasteful and uncivilized. On Earth, Foreign Minister Wan Ho Lim reviewed the flood of diplomatic messages arriving daily from desperate alien governments. Every major species in the galaxy was now offering some form of tribute, alliance, or concession in exchange for resumed human cooperation. The offers ranged from reasonable to absurd to completely insulting. "Sir," his diplomatic secretary reported, "the latest message from Speaker Vex Thala offers to restore full human voting rights in the Galactic Council, plus permanent seats on all major committees." Wanho read the message and noted the careful language that avoided any actual apology for past treatment of humanity. The aliens still could not bring themselves to admit that they had been wrong about human capabilities or character. They wanted human help, but they did not want to acknowledge human equality. "Send the standard diplomatic reply," he instructed. "The Terran Federation appreciates these offers, but we are currently focused on internal development. We wish the Council the best in resolving their current difficulties." The phrase had become famous throughout human space as the polite way of telling the aliens to solve their own problems. Human citizens took pride in their government's refusal to be manipulated by beings who had treated them with contempt for decades. President Yoonji Nam convened the Terran Security Council to address the growing evidence of an extragalactic threat. The same machine entities that had invaded 50 years ago were returning in even greater numbers. This time humanity would face them alone without alien allies, who had proven unreliable in the previous conflict. Intelligence reports confirm that a massive fleet of machine entities is approaching from beyond the galactic rim, she announced to the assembled military and political leaders. Estimated time of arrival is between 4 and 6 months. We must assume that the aliens will be unable to mount any effective defense. Defense Secretary Kaiwan Park reviewed the latest military assessments from Admiral Shin's command staff. "Our current fleet strength is 3 times larger than during the previous invasion. The new quantum fold drives give us unprecedented mobility. The experimental shield harmonics should provide protection against machine energy weapons." But everyone in the room understood the magnitude of the challenge they faced. The machine entities had consumed entire star systems during their first incursion. Only desperate human tactics and willingness to accept massive casualties had stopped their advance. This time there would be no alien colonies to evacuate and no alien fleets to provide support, even if that support had proven mostly useless. "What is the status of our defensive preparations?" the president asked. Admiral Boyoung, Shin activated a holographic display showing human military deployments throughout the solar system and nearby colonies. All major population centers have been fortified with the new shield generators. The outer system defense platforms are armed with antimatter torpedoes and gravitational pulse weapons. The mobile fleet is positioned to respond rapidly to any threat vector. The preparations were impressive, but everyone knew that the real test would come when the machines arrived. Human technology had advanced significantly since the previous invasion, but the machine entities had also had 50 years to improve their capabilities. Intelligence Director Sung-Ho Nam reported on the latest observations from deep space monitoring stations. "The approaching fleet appears to be 10 times larger than the previous invasion force. Our analysts estimate over 50,000 individual machine vessels plus support structures that could be mobile factories or command centers." The numbers were sobering. During the first invasion, a human fleet of 800 ships had barely defeated 3,000 machine entities through superior tactics and desperate sacrifice. Now humanity would face an enemy force that was both larger and potentially more advanced. "We have one significant advantage," Research Director Kyungmin Jo announced. "Our analysis of captured machine fragments has revealed critical weaknesses in their energy distribution systems. The new shield harmonics can create resonance patterns that overload their power networks." She activated her own holographic display, showing test results from the classified weapons program. "A single harmonic pulse can disable multiple machine vessels simultaneously. Our new destroyers are equipped with harmonic generators that can effectively neutralize entire enemy formations. The technology was promising, but it remained untested against live targets. Human scientists had been forced to rely on computer simulations and experiments with captured fragments. The real effectiveness of the new weapons would only be known when the invasion began. Counselor Sun Min Kang, who had remained behind to observe the Galactic Council, reported on the latest alien reactions to the emergency war coordinator. Che Wan-yoon watched the alien communication channels from her command center on Luna Base as the machine entities finally arrived at the Galactic Rim. 3 years had passed since humanity severed all relations with the Galactic Council, and now the moment of ultimate truth had come for both humans and aliens alike. The extragalactic fleet was even more massive than intelligence estimates had predicted. Over 100,000 machine vessels of various sizes had emerged from the void between galaxies and were advancing toward inhabited space with methodical precision. The first alien colonies to encounter them were annihilated within hours, as the machines consumed entire planets to fuel their continued expansion. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving over 300 emergency transmissions from alien governments. They are offering complete surrender, territorial concessions, technological sharing, and even permanent human dominance in exchange for immediate military intervention." Chaewon read through the desperate messages flooding the human networks. The Galactic Council had authorized Speaker Vexathala to offer humanity complete control over all Council military forces, unlimited access to alien technology, and governing authority over any territory humans chose to claim. The terms were more generous than anything humans had dreamed of receiving during 50 years of diplomatic efforts, but the offers came 3 years too late, and from civilizations that were already doomed. The skeletal alien defense forces had engaged the machine entities at the Outer Rim and been destroyed in less than 6 hours of combat. Alien military doctrine that emphasized measured responses and proportional force had proved completely useless against enemies that showed no mercy and followed no rules of civilized warfare. Battle reports from the first encounters made devastating reading. The Hive Lord battle fleet had attempted to negotiate with the machine entities using standard diplomatic protocols. The machines had responded by targeting the command ships first and systematically destroying the entire fleet, while the aliens were still transmitting surrender offers. The deep-sworn defensive armada had tried to fall back to prepared positions and conduct a fighting withdrawal according to established tactical doctrine. The machine entities had simply surrounded them and consumed every vessel along with the crews, who had expected to be taken prisoner, according to galactic conventions of war. President Yoon Ji-nam convened the emergency session of the Terran War, council that would determine humanity's response to the greatest crisis in galactic history. The assembled military and political leaders understood that their decision would affect not only human survival, but the fate of every intelligent species in the galaxy. Intelligence confirms that the machine entities are advancing on a broad front toward the galactic core, Admiral Boyoung-shin reported. At their current rate of progress, they will reach the major alien homeworlds within 4 months. After that, they will have consumed enough resources to become unstoppable. The holographic display showed the machine fleet's projected advance routes. Red indicators marked systems that had already fallen, while orange zones showed areas that would be overrun within weeks. The blue markers representing human space lay directly in the invasion path. "What is our current military readiness?" President Nam asked. "All human fleets are at maximum readiness," Admiral Shin replied. "The new quantum fold drives have been installed on every major vessel. Shield harmonics generators are operational throughout the fleet. Defensive installations around every human world are fully armed and staffed." The military preparations were impressive, but everyone in the room knew that humanity faced impossible odds. The machine fleet outnumbered human forces by more than 50 to 1. Even with superior technology and tactics, the mathematics of the situation were daunting. Defense Minister Ki-Wan Park presented the strategic analysis that would guide their decision. "We have 3 options. First, we can attempt to defend human space alone and hope that our technological advantages compensate for numerical inferiority. Second, we can evacuate our populations to distant colonies beyond the machine advance and rebuild elsewhere. Third, We can intervene to save the alien civilizations and risk everything in a battle we might not win. The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Many argued that the aliens deserved their fate after decades of treating humanity with contempt and dismissal. Others insisted that allowing the machines to consume the galaxy would only make them stronger for the inevitable attack on human space. Captain Soo-Yun Bae, who had commanded a destroyer during the first machine invasion 50 years ago, provided the perspective that ultimately swayed the discussion. "I fought those things before," she said quietly. "I watched them tear apart everything we had built and kill everyone we cared about. The aliens treated us badly, but the machines will treat us worse. They do not negotiate or show mercy. They do not take prisoners or offer terms. They simply consume everything in their path until nothing remains." She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. "We do not fight to save the aliens who rejected us. We fight because if we do not stop the machines here and now, we will face them later when they are even stronger. We fight because it is the right thing to do even when nobody deserves our help." President Nam called for a vote, and the decision was unanimous. Humanity would intervene to save the galaxy that had cast them out. Not because the aliens deserved salvation, but because humanity deserved to remain human. The orders went out immediately to every human fleet commander and ground installation throughout human space. Operation Final Stand was now active. Every available ship, every experienced crew, and every advanced weapon system would be committed to the battle that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Admiral Shin coordinated the largest fleet deployment in human history from her flagship Incheon, as hundreds of human warships converged on the battle zone. The New Horizon-class destroyers with their experimental harmonic weapons led the advance, while heavy cruisers and battleships formed the main battle line. "All units report ready for quantum fold jump," her tactical officer announced. "Destination: coordinates locked on the Zirian system where the machine advance guard is engaging the last alien defense positions." The irony was not lost on Admiral Shin that humanity was rushing to defend the same Zirian system, where aliens had begged humans to maintain their defense grid only to be refused when the withdrawal began. Now human ships would fight and die to protect worlds that had rejected human protection. "Execute jump," she ordered. The human fleet vanished from normal space and reappeared at the edge of the Zirion system where the final battle was already underway. The scene that greeted them was one of absolute devastation, as machine entities systematically destroyed the few remaining alien vessels while beginning the process of planetary consumption. "My God," someone whispered on the bridge as they watched, massive machine structures descending toward the planet's surface like metallic parasites preparing to devour their host. "All units," Admiral Shin broadcast on the Fleet Command channel. "Engage designated targets. Show them what happens when they threaten human space." The human fleet attacked with a fury and precision that the machines had never encountered before. Quantum fold drives allowed human ships to appear and disappear throughout the battle zone faster than machine sensors could track. Harmonic weapons created resonance cascades that overloaded entire machine formations simultaneously. Captain Minho Kim commanded his heavy cruiser Seoul in the desperate battle and watched his harmonic generators tear through machine defenses that had seemed impenetrable. The experimental technology worked even better than the scientists had predicted, as machine after machine simply shut down when their power systems were overloaded by resonance feedback. "Target the large structures descending toward the planet," he ordered his weapons officer. "Those are their resource extraction units. If we can destroy them, the machines cannot resupply themselves." Human tactics were everything the aliens had criticized and more. Human commanders rammed damaged ships into machine formations. Human crews detonated antimatter warheads at point-blank range. Human pilots flew suicide missions to deliver weapons directly into machine command centers. But humanity had learned from the previous invasion. The new ships were designed for maximum firepower and survivability. The new weapons could destroy machine entities that had previously required multiple hits. The new shields could absorb energy discharges that would have vaporized older human vessels. Most importantly, humanity had developed the tactical doctrine and strategic planning that came from 50 years of experience fighting enemies that the aliens considered uncivilized. Human military thinking had always assumed that opponents would use every possible advantage and show no mercy. Machine entities were simply the logical extreme of that assumption. The battle raged for 18 hours as human ships engaged machine forces throughout the Xerian system and slowly gained the upper hand through superior mobility and devastating firepower. When the last machine entity was destroyed, the human fleet had lost 37 vessels and over 8,000 crew members.